Build Show Live 2024 conference classes are brought to you by Builders First Source, Huber Engineered Woods, Pella, and Sashco.
Hey guys, this is Stephanie Dailey live from Build Show Live. If you have missed this year's event, you're in luck. We will be doing this again next year, October of 2025 in Dallas, Texas. I'm here at the Pella booth and I want to introduce you to one of my favorite new products, which is Pella's brand new wood window installation system, Steady Set. This product has been a game changer for us on the job site for multiple reasons, but I'll give you some of my top favorites. So first, it comes with these flip and click clips, which allow us to install the windows a lot quicker and safer because we're installing from the interior of the home. It also cuts down on the number of people needed because it has this amazing head stabilizer. It's got built-in shims. There are so many great features to this window. It's been a game changer for us on the job site. Another thing that's been one of my top favorites is actually the flashing flange. So we no longer have a traditional nailing flange. We're not putting a bunch of holes in our weather barrier. We just install the window. We can go through the entire home, install everything, and then we can just do the flashing from the exterior. So we can take care of not having a bunch of scaffolding and just having people be a lot more safe. We just take this great protective cover off, and then the flashing flange folds out. It has a really great rubber corner, which I've loved, and it makes things a whole lot simpler. Additionally, on the bottom of this, it's actually labeled in both English and Spanish, telling people not to tape the bottom in case any water did get in. That gives it a place to get out. Pella has really changed the game with wood window installation, and you guys are not going to want to miss this. You can go visit Pella's website at www.pella.com/SteadySet for more information. This classroom session, we want to do a little differently. So it's going to be very collaborative. We're going to be asking a ton of questions. We actually have Chelsea that'll walk around with a mic, so you guys can actually pipe in and give us your thoughts on different things. Our whole goal with this classroom session was just to try and help builders and trades communicate better and collaborate better to make both of our experiences a lot better for the build and long-term relationships. So we're just gonna get started. Little intro. You guys probably already know who we both are, but my name is Stephanie Dailey. I'm a general contractor out of Utah, and I primarily do luxury custom homes, and I would tell you my trade base is pretty much the same from job to job. And the reason that is I feel very strongly that relationships make a huge difference in the construction industry. And if I'm bouncing around between trades, I don't have the opportunity to build those good relationships.
I'm Lydia. I have been a drywall contractor for about 21 years, coming on 22. So that's what I do for a job. I am a subcontractor. So we work kind of with the same amount of builders. We don't do a ton of guys that just come up to us and are like, can you do our work? We try and vet our contractors. We have one that we've been working with for about 4 years. He does a lot of duplexes and kind of like big subdivisions. So we've been working with him consistently for a long time, and then we've done some really cool custom fine home building too for some specific builders. So we're really picky. We just don't work with everybody, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, communicate.
I think the biggest problem we have overall as builders, and this goes for just about everyone in this industry, is communication. We all struggle a little bit to talk to one another, and I think providing that correct communication is kind of our biggest problem. So we can talk to each other pretty easily, but having some type of way to communicate on the job site so that everyone is on the same page is really important.
Yeah, for me, if I show up and there's nobody on site, I mean, the builder's not always going to be there, but if I'm like, you want me there, and you're like, hey, I want you there on Tuesday, it helps a lot for you to be there so we can walk through the job, we can see what's going on. You can communicate to me what you're expecting, and then I can communicate to you, if this is what you're expecting, this is what I need to have done to be able to meet those goals, meet those deadlines, and give you the work that you want. And it's huge too, when you are communicating with your subcontractors, we need to know a lot. Don't just give us like a brief overview, like overload us with information. I would rather know like everything about the entire job than know little to nothing. Like, okay, here you go, get started, let's go. I would like to know, you know, when your flooring guy's coming in, what your trim height is, what's going on this wall, where your cabinet placement is, like everything. Tell me, let me know what this job is going to look like at the end, so then I can make sure I meet your goals at the end.
How many of you, by raise of hands, use some type of software or program to communicate with your trades on the job site?
Okay. How many of you use text messages?
The majority.
Yeah.
And then email or phone calls, kind of a little bit of both. I think one of the most important things that I've learned, or one of the things I've tried to be better at, I do pick up the phone and make a lot of phone calls. I think that's good for a relationship. But having the information in some type of form of reference, I guess, whether that's email or text message, so that you kind of have a check that, hey, I did communicate this to you. That way we're not coming back and having people say, hey, you never told me that. That's why I did it the way I did it. There are a lot of great softwares out there that you can use to communicate with your trades, but I do think just providing everyone all of the information on the job site is kind of the best step to that communication.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I've been on the job trying to find the roll of blueprints someplace that have muddy footprints all over them, trying to walk through and be like, well, what's going here? What's going there? So, you know, even like notes, just something around the job that helps, you know, communicate to your trades what you're looking for. Helps us a lot. Business honesty.
Yeah, this is one of those that I've seen a pretty big shift. I think we have a lot of contractors that like to play the blame game. You know, we have a lot that we're managing multiple jobs, we're managing the whole job from start to finish, which is just a lot of information, a lot of different clients, a lot of different designers. And I'll be the first to tell you, I've forgot things, I've missed things, I've made mistakes, and having the ability to just say, hey, that was my mistake, own up to those mistakes. Don't just blame it on your trades. The second you take information and say, hey, I told you to do it this way, but you did it this way, this is your fault, that's gonna start to burn those bridges and ruin relationships. And I don't know about all of you, but I imagine it's the same way in your area. The whole contractor community in Utah is really small. Word travels fast. If you're a dishonest builder, if you're treating your trades poorly, whatever it may be, they're gonna hear about that. And when you go to look for the next drywall contractor because Lydia's mad at you that you blamed a mistake on her, they're gonna already know, hey, that builder is one that likes to put mistakes on their trades and not own up to things.
Yeah, and for, you know, me as a subcontractor, I need to know that, number one, you're gonna be paying me on time. That's part of honesty. If you say you're gonna pay me, I need to get paid. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard that the check's in the mail, or it's on the way, or you're counting on that money to be there because you did a job for someone. So be really honest, be really straightforward with what's expected. Be like, these are my draw dates. If you want money, I need to have this invoice in by here. So then that way I know, okay, he's being honest with me, he's being upfront, or she's being honest with me, and I know what I need to do to make sure I get paid, and then I'm not left sitting there hanging being like, is he lying to me? Is the check really in the mail? Like, what's going on? Why hasn't this money get deposited? And if you're not honest and the job isn't working well, I'm not gonna wanna do another job for you. Especially with good trade subs, you really need to be communicating, that's not a word. You really need to be communicative with them. Like, talk to each other, be honest. Like, the more that you can tell and the more that you communicate, the better it is. We just want to know what's going on so that we can give you the best job.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to make sure as we're going through these, think about your experiences and things that you've had that have run into some of these issues, or better ways you've kind of got through some of these issues, because we really want to open the floor up and hear from all of you guys. I think if you watched the keynote, one of the things that was said was the knowledge is not ours to keep. And I agree with that 100%. That's the whole goal of being here, is we're all helping each other know better and build better. And we want to hear your experiences as well. So don't be afraid to get in the mic. When we open this up here in just a few minutes, I want you guys to share your experiences with the group as well, because it's great to hear from Lydia and I, but there are a lot of great builders in this room that also have really good experiences and different things they've been through that we want to make sure that you guys all have the opportunity to give us the way you've handled things, and we can all kind of work together to make it better.
Yes. This dependable scheduling.
This is a problem for builders. One of the
I would say it's probably number one problem, or one of the biggest problems.
Allie's actually in the back of the room here, and I have never seen someone who handles scheduling better than Allie does. I think with custom construction, I'll be the first to admit, I do not have like a long-term schedule on my job sites. And I don't know if that's just because the type of homes we're building change on a day-to-day basis. What I'm doing changes, time frame changes. I do, however, keep all of my trades informed all the time. Every Monday, every Friday, I'm reaching out to all my trades that are coming up down the line, just giving them an update on the job sites. I also like to give them updates on the projects that are in bid phases, like, hey, this job, the homeowner walked away because the price was too much. This one, we're in permitting, whatever it may be, because that's gonna help my trades kind of get an idea of their schedule long-term, because, you know, Lydia might be working for me, she might also be working for Travis, she might also be working for Zach, and she needs to make sure, okay, if we all have projects that we want Lydia on, she kind of knows ahead of time where to slot all of us in, even if we're not putting together this long chart of scheduling for the whole entire project.
And I don't want to have to be constantly messaging you when you've told me a date, and I'm having to like hound you to figure out if it's happening. We had a job that was scheduled to start in like July. It didn't start until November. So I'm constantly emailing them being like, hey, are we ready this week yet? And they're like, nope, not ready yet. Like, communicate with me so I'm not sitting there being like, okay, well, I told the hangars it's supposed to be ready in 2 weeks, and then I'm emailing you, and then you're like, oh no, that got pushed back another month and a half, and then it just messes everybody up, and then we're scrambling for work. We had these things in our schedule. A lot of times, if you give me a schedule, I'm not gonna take on something else. But then if that gets pushed back, then it gets overlapped. And then it's taking my time away from your job if you're not communicating to me what scheduling looks like. So if I have two stacked on each other and one's on schedule and one's not, that's gonna be your fault for not telling me what the schedule is when I'm not showing up at your job and it's not getting done on your scheduled timeline. So really try and communicate as much as you can. Have, maybe a group email too with the trades that are coming right after each other. So your drywaller, and then maybe have your painter kind of communicate also on schedules so that they can know what's going on. I mean, there's lots of times the painter will come in and he'll be like, when are you guys gonna be done? We can give him a rough estimate so then he knows when to start. But you guys need to help too, being the managers and the people that are in control of the job, because I can tell him a date and then you guys are like, well, I didn't think you were supposed to start until the 22nd, but the drywaller said I can start the 15th. So definitely try and get in there and manage as much as you can between your trades so there isn't confusion.
Yeah, we all have issues with scheduling, and I'm going to give you an example of something really wonderful that happened to me last week. I have a project that just finished getting wired. We have all the HVAC in, plumbing's all done. We're ready to do all of our inspections. The insulator has been calling me every single week, just giving me an update. Hey, the foam truck is 2 weeks out. Give me some information. Let me know where you're at. I actually scheduled them because I knew I had inspections. I knew that there may be 1 or 2 little items, but we'd be able to handle them within a few days' notice, so it wouldn't be an issue. I showed up to the job site on Monday morning to do my inspection, and someone had come in over the weekend and cut out all of the wiring out of the entire home, pulled all of the copper out of the wire. They probably got $200 worth of copper and did me $9,000 worth of damage. And that was my electrician being kind and giving me a really good deal, but he basically had to go through and rerun all of the home runs in the house. So that stopped everything. And I now had an insulator who had a foam truck scheduled and was ready to come, and everyone kind of piled up behind him. And even though it wasn't a problem that I could control or something that we did internally or a change the client made, it was a hiccup. And I think that was a really good lesson learned of when things like that happen, you just have to reach out and let people know. As a home builder, as a general contractor, you need to remember there are a lot of people, your trades, your suppliers, who are making their living based on the jobs that you're providing them. You're providing a lot of families money, to feed their family, to pay for their housing. If you're promising them jobs and you're promising them projects and then you never pull through or you keep pushing them off, a lot of people are relying on that work in order to pay their own bills or pay their employees or whatever it may be. So having that good schedule, even if there is hiccups, we go back, communicate the hiccups, and make sure that you're reassessing the schedule. How many, by raise of hands, use some type of software or programming to do your schedules on your jobs? So quite a few of you. I would love to just, as we get to the end of here and we open it up, I'd love to hear from those of you who did raise your hands, what you're using. I think a lot of us have tried different softwares and maybe haven't utilized the full capacity or all the features that they offer. And a lot of it is just intimidation. I know I get into Builder Trend and I'm like, oh my goodness, where am I at? What am I doing? It can be a little overwhelming. There are a few people in this room that are Builder Trend masters that can kind of give us some tips and tricks. But scheduling is really important. And you just have to remember, if you're the one that's running the job, project manager, general contractor, whatever it is, just make sure that you are always keeping at the top of your mind that there are other people that are relying on you to schedule these jobs right so that they can feed their families, they can pay their employees, and they can keep their business running.
And I think as a tradesperson, I'm not expecting everything to be perfect. If you break ground and you give me a schedule, I'm assuming there's going to be some stuff that's going to go wrong. Somebody's going to be behind, windows might not be on schedule, something isn't getting delivered. We've had a real problem with insulators being on time. They're just so busy and they're so short-handed. Sometimes it's pushed off 2 to 3 days. Same thing with inspections. Like there's just stuff, we know there's going to be some wiggle room. So kind of give us, it doesn't have to be like a super, super hard date, but at least kind of give us a general idea of when you're expecting us to be in there. So then we can kind of plan around that. But there's going to be delays. We all know there is. Everything gets pushed back. It's not uncommon to be like, hey, I'm sorry, I got to move this back a week or two. But just let us know as soon as you know so that we can make appropriate plans. Mutual respect.
This is huge. I can tell you there are a lot of builders in our market that have a bad reputation for treating trade partners, subcontractors like they're less than they are. That's one of the things that I've always tried to be better about when I'm speaking. I don't necessarily call my subcontractors subcontractors. They're my trade partner. I don't want them to feel like they're any less than anyone else that's part of our team, and I think it is really important to have that respect for them. Let's be honest, if it weren't for the trade partners, I wouldn't be the builder I am. I don't get my hands in the entire project. I'm not actually physically doing all of the work, or maybe even any of the work sometimes. And I couldn't provide the product I provide without having good trade partners on the job site. And a huge piece to that is having respect for them, not treating them like they're less than, not treating them with a bad attitude or aggressiveness. It's a really important thing to remember. You all have excellent reputations for being good builders. You wouldn't have that reputation if it weren't for the partners that you chose to have on your job site.
And respect goes a long way. Like Stephanie's talking, we're partners here. Like I'm not just coming in to put the drywall, mud on the walls. I'm coming in to give you a high class, good job, and I want to do my best for you. But if you come in and you're like, man, why aren't you working Saturday? Or why aren't you working Sunday? Or you have these expectations that I'm always going to be on your job all the time, and if I'm not, then I'm not doing what you want, and pretty much that you own me or you think you're my boss, it's not going to go well. Most of your subcontractors are going to be self-employed, running small businesses on their own too. So they're dealing with the same things you're dealing with management, managing employees, managing schedules. So just try and give that respect back. Like, hey man, I'm not gonna be at your job today. Be like, okay, I understand that. I'm sure you have a lot going on today. Thank you for communicating that to me. I hope to see you tomorrow. And it goes on the subcontractor's end too. Like I need to respect Stephanie and her schedule. If I know I'm gonna be late, I should be communicating that. We just all need to just respect each other. We're all people, we're all humans, we have lives, we have families, we have all sorts of stuff going on. So You know, if somebody's having a bad day, I think just giving them a little extra leeway can go a long way, especially if you're a sub. You're like, man, that builder like really took the time to understand what was going on, and I really appreciate that he did that. And maybe I'll go the extra mile or do something extra for you, or you know, I move my schedule up a little bit to rearrange to fit you better. So just, you know, just treat each other like equals.
Raise a hand. How many in this room are contractors or project managers? And how many are subcontractors or trades?
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a good mix of both. I think it's just important. You guys, another quick little example. I've seen in our market, the average age of a general contractor is 62.
Yeah.
And I think that's fairly common nationwide, but the builders in our market are in their later part of their career. A lot of them are kind of in that transition phase of getting ready to retire. They came up in the industry in a different time than we did. And it was a different time when they, you know, 80s, 90s was just a different time in the industry than it is today. I've actually watched contractors handle miscommunication or arguments with trade partners by saying, well, let's just take this outside.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And
Wow.
it's not that way today. It shouldn't have been that way then. Unfortunately, it was just a little different back then, and the industry, they handled things differently, they did things differently. It's not a good way to handle arguments or miscommunication with your trade partners or general contractors, but it is a reality, and it is something that used to be very, very common in this rough and tough and gritty construction industry that we're a part of. And we just need to really remember that things have changed. We need to treat each other with respect, and it'll go a long way when all is said and done.
Well, and don't forget too, I can always walk off your job. If I'm not getting respect, I can just be like, see ya, like I'm done. And sometimes that happens. There have been stories about people getting into it with the builder, and you know what? They just walk off. They pick up their tools, they leave, and then you have nothing. What are you gonna do? You're scrambling last minute to hopefully find somebody that can come in and finish the work. So you don't want that. It does happen occasionally, but the best thing that you can do too, I mean, even coming back to respect, have your job sites tidy, have them ready. If you're calling me and you're saying, I need you to start, let me start. Like, that shows me respect that you're respecting my trade. If I come in there and you've got the towel guy on top of me or the painter's like right behind me trying to do stuff, that's showing me that you're not respecting me either to get my craft done or the time that it takes to do it right. So make sure you're giving all of your subs ample time. You really don't want them to walk off the job. So respect is absolutely huge. Value appreciation.
Yeah, one of the big things we need to remember is that our trade partners bring immense value to our job sites. And again, we couldn't do or build the homes that we build without great people and great tradespeople on our team. There are a lot of people in this industry that just expect their trades to do what they need them to do. And you work for me, this is just something we expect you to do. I think we need to go back to respect and really appreciating our trades. And the biggest reason that Lydia and I wanted to put this one on here is actually not necessarily appreciating your trades as much as it is their pricing. So if I have a homeowner who comes to me and says, hey, I need you to bid, just like Matt said, I need you to bid this job, I need 3 bids in every area. Okay, I understand where you're coming from. You need to communicate to that client that there is value in your trades, in your people that you've chosen to work on the job sites with you. If, in my case, I am not the lowest cost builder in my market, if they're looking for a builder to try and find the lowest bid on every portion of the build, they've got the wrong GC, and that's just really easy to communicate from the beginning. I'm not going to get a bid from Lydia and then go back to her and say, hey, this bid looks great, but you need to work on your numbers. You need to have trust in your trade partners and understand that they've gone out of their way to check current prices on board or whatever their products may be, and they're giving you a bid every now and again, it's good to just check the market rate and see if you're in the same ballpark. It's good information to let people kind of course correct sometimes. If we get to a point where we're working and everyone's really stressed and they're increasing their prices because they're overloaded with work, that's okay. We just need to remember to value our trades and don't go back to all your trades and say, hey, I price checked you with 2 other contractors. Their price was lower. If you want this job, I need you to knock it down. It's good to have those conversations to just course correct and make sure that we're all on the same page, we're all paying a good market rate. But don't go to every one of your trades and start knocking them down on their bid and on their pricing to try and get the lowest price.
Yeah, that's something we deal with, pretty frequently. And if a builder's going to be like that, I'm not going to want to do their work. If you're getting 2 bids, that's fine. If you're like getting your bids together, and maybe you have a couple different contractors you're looking on or you're looking at. But if you come to me and you're like, well, this guy's $1 cheaper, I'm gonna be like, have fun with the guy that's $1 cheaper. Like, that's great, he's $1 cheaper, but I'm not gonna do it for that price. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time and skill for your tradespeople to be where they're at. And I think that's something we have to value too, is if you have somebody that's experienced and their crew is really good and they show up on time and you know that they're dependable and they're gonna get the work done, their bid might be a little bit higher because you are paying for that experience. Does it mean that, that the lower bid might be better? No, I mean, those guys might be good too. Maybe they're just starting and they're trying to get a lot of work and they're trying to build their business, but don't go and start pitting, other companies against each other. If I give you a bid and you're like, well, this company is 50 cents cheaper and they can get it done twice as fast, like, okay, that's great. I don't need to compete with that. If you want me, take it. If you don't, move on to the next one. And it doesn't need to be this kind of like trying to talk somebody down on their price. It gets insulting to a point where you're like, I feel like you don't appreciate the value that I'm bringing to the table. And if it's not gonna work out well in the bid stage, the job probably isn't gonna go well, and I already know there's gonna be problems. And I have no problem walking away from a job that's gonna be causing me a ton of issues. You're gonna be bugging me all the time about stuff. So make sure you are really valuing the value that your tradespeople bring.
I've seen a really great post going around on social media, and I don't remember exactly word for word, but it says it's about a plumber who went to a homeowner's house to do something. Let's call it a water heater change. And it took that plumber 30 minutes to do it, and they sent him a $5,000 bill, whatever it was. And the homeowner replies back and said, well, that only took you 30 minutes, and it was $5,000. Just remember, you're not paying for the time it took them to do the job. You're paying for the experience they've learned in the past to get them to a point where they can do that job in 30 minutes. So time and value together aren't always hand in hand. It's just because my contractor is really quick and really efficient at the job that they do doesn't mean that they should be paid less money. That's actually a really good reasoning behind why they should be paid more money.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you really want quality work, don't be afraid to spend a little bit more. Because not only that, but I know that you're appreciating all of the time that it's taken me to get to this level of my trade. There's a lot, well, what do I want to say here? I kind of lost my train of thought, but I only had a point there.
It's all right, it'll come back to you.
I had a point, but I can't remember what it was. Okay. Making payments promptly, on time, or ahead of time, always.
So how many of you deal with banks and draws? Quite a bit. So the common process with getting a bank draw is you submit your draw form in whichever format the bank is asking you for. 30 days, 45 days, whatever it is. After the homeowner signed off on it, the bank signed off on it, you finally get your check. How many of you wait for those draws to get sent to you before you pay your trades? A couple. So in my business, one of the things that we try and do really all of the time is if I have a drywall contractor that sends me a bill, I try and pay that within the next 14 days at most. And the reason I do that is I know that if I'm paying my trades right away, if they send me a bill, I'm paying them right away, they're gonna come back to my job over and over and over again over another contractor who makes them wait until they get the bank draw. Now, that takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of correct money management to put money back into your business in order to have a working capital that you can actually do that. It's not something, if you're new in construction, it's not something that we have the ability to do right from the get-go unless you do have a good amount of money into your business. So you may not be able to do that today, but when you get to the point where you're putting that profit back into the business and you have the money, I can tell you paying your trade contractors promptly, paying them within a few days is great. I have some trades that I just know are gonna bring me in their invoice with one hand in hand, their open hand ready for the check. And there's just a couple trades that are just not good with financial money management, and it's okay. Those guys I know that I need to make sure I'm paying when they bring me their invoice. But if you are paying your trades quickly and not making them wait to get that bank draw, they're gonna come back to you over the next builder because it's important to them. They know they can pay their employees or their suppliers or take care of their family, and they're gonna pick you over the builder that's making them wait.
100%. I can't even tell you how important this is. There's a builder that we do work for, and he has a direct deposit that goes in. But the direct deposit doesn't always go in on time. So he's like, it could be between the 10th and the 17th. That's a huge amount of time. If you're waiting and you have bills to pay, you have suppliers to pay, you have employees to pay, and you're sitting there telling me, well, it could be between the 10th or the 17th, maybe the 20th, not totally sure when that's gonna go in, that makes me feel really uncomfortable doing business with you. Because when we do our jobs, we're taking on all of those costs of the materials. We're having to go and pay our employees. We're having to take on a cost to do the work for you, and we're expecting to get paid so that we can also then turn around and pay all of our bills so that we can go to the next job. Because you have to think this might be your only job, but it's not our only job. We have a lot of other our contractors that we work for. We might have a jam schedule. We're going job to job to job. And then if I'm waiting on payment from you and I can't pay my material bill, what am I gonna do? Like, you totally just screwed me over. So it's really important that you're communicating when I'm gonna get paid, when I need to get you my invoice by, when I can expect payment. Bring me a check. If you're doing it by check, sometimes it works out great to be like, hey, I can meet you on the job site with the check in my hand. Thank you for your work. And when you say thank you, and I know that you appreciate what I do, it makes me want to work for you and come back. Because, there's been jobs where I think we've gone out 3 months without getting paid. And you're constantly having to hound the builder. I'm stressed out. You're stressed out because I'm calling you all the time. You're not giving me any sort of payment timeline. You keep pushing me off, which then tells me you're not being honest with me, which then why would I want to continue to do another job for you if it's just going to be a giant headache for me? So really think about communicating upfront. I mean, even when you sign the bid, be like, these are our billing terms. If you'd like to get paid on this day, I need your bill by here. And also be a little flexible too. Sometimes, letting us have a draw can help a lot. 50% deposit before we start. Then we know, hey, we're okay to get through this job, and then we'll get the rest when we're done. But it shows that you're trusting us, you're committed to us, you're not gonna flake off, you're not gonna not call me back. Because if I have you scheduled too, sometimes that happens. Somebody will have you scheduled, and then last minute they'll pick a lower bid. And then you're sitting there waiting to get the work done, and you're like, oh, well, what happened to that builder? He just disappeared. I mean, that's happened quite a few times. I guess we're not doing that one, and then we're scrambling to find work. So don't be afraid either to give a small deposit, or maybe set up some sort of draw schedule with your subcontractors too. So then that way we feel like you're committed to us, and then we can commit to you.
Yeah, if you are a newer builder in the room, I think there are a few things you can do ahead of time to try and set yourself and your job up for better success with this, even if you may not have a big working capital. So I've actually, in the past, always taken a very small deposit from my clients from the beginning. And by very small, I mean we'll build $20 million houses and I ask them for $20,000. And I've already spent that, more than that, on a building permit, typically, in my area. Actually didn't even realize that was working against me until I had some really good conversations with other builder friends like Allie, who said, what are you doing? You are hurting yourself here. And I always kind of thought no, it makes me look good because I'm not taking a lot of money from them up front. But everybody else is. everybody else around you is asking them for a decent deposit. I know there are some builders in my market that are asking for 10% of the overall cost. I know there are some that do just like a larger flat number, whatever it may be. You can take a deposit ahead of time from your clients. If they're building a home with you, they expect to have a deposit that they're going to pay. It also puts a little bit of their skin in the game. So, if they've got their own money that's outside of a bank draw, whatever it may be that's into your contract, they're invested. They now are part of the team. They just aren't expecting you to pay for this and fund their entire build. So don't be afraid to ask for a good deposit up front. I also think that as we go through these processes, reinvest in yourself, reinvest in your business. You may see a big profit come from a job, but we could go into another recession, and then we need to have those funds to support our company and to keep paying our employees and to keep business going. So as tempting as it can be to see that big profit in your cost breakdown and when the job is done, take that and buy yourself a brand new Lamborghini, don't do it. Invest back into your company and make sure that you have those reserves like Matt was talking about. Who knows when we could have another recession and you end up sitting on $1 million house that you have to sell for $750,000 and have to pay Chuck for the next 2 years. So I think it is important to just reinvest in your business. If you're new, ask your customers for an invoice or a deposit up front. And just, I guess by raise of hands, how many of you paid deposits to your trades or suppliers during construction?
Yeah, nice, good.
So there are quite a few. It's interesting, at least in my market, a lot of banks historically, I would say pre-COVID, wouldn't let you take deposits out of a construction draw. It was like completely against the bank's rules. They just didn't believe in deposits. So a lot of times if you needed to pay the cabinet guy 40%, you'd have to ask the homeowner for that if you didn't have it to work off of your own capital. And I think post-COVID, the banks have now realized there are not a lot of people stocking materials. There are not a lot of people that are storing back stock on things. So if I'm ordering a $300,000 cabinet package, that cabinet maker is gonna have to go out and buy the material to build those cabinets. They just don't have it sitting in their warehouse anymore. Nobody stocks anything anymore. It's almost impossible to find anything that's just stocked. So paying those deposits has become more normal for banks these days. And most banks do in their draw process, if they're doing like an onboarding process with you and the homeowner, as they're telling you their draw process and how you're gonna do things, ask about the deposits. Speak up, ask the bank or the credit union, hey, what is your process with deposits? Because you should know ahead of the game. If Lydia's gonna ask me for a deposit for materials on drywall, I need to know before I start if I should start saving money to pay these deposits, or if it's something that the bank or credit union is willing to take care of out of the loan or draw. And most of the time they are willing to do it. You do have to have some type of invoice, that maybe even a receipt of payment from your trade or your supplier, but always ask the question at that like onboarding meeting with the bank. Ask the question, because you don't want to get yourself into trouble where you have a $300,000 cabinet package, you have to pay a 40% deposit, and maybe you don't have the capital.
And even if you are willing, I've had builders offer a deposit. Have I always needed it? No, but just that gesture really means a ton. So like if I give you a bid and you're like, great, I'd like you to start here, here's a 40% deposit or a 30% deposit, and I'm not having to ask you for money, like, oh my goodness, yes, I would love to do your work for the rest of my life. So think about that too. Like maybe that's something that you offer when people are giving you bids and you do choose who you want to go with. Be like, I would love to offer you a 30% deposit or whatever it is that you feel comfortable giving to hold that place in your schedule for you to do my work. And it makes me feel way more comfortable too, making sure that if I am buying a lot of materials or I am having to buy a lot of stock, that I know I'm not going to be stuck and left then maybe with a bunch of custom stuff that I ordered for you, and then you pulled the rug out from underneath me. So, I mean, in my bids, I usually put that we need a deposit. So it'll be down at the bottom, it'll say like, this is what the bill is, or this is what my bid is, this is what I'm expecting for a deposit, and then I'm expecting this amount due once we complete the job. So, yeah, every sub's a little bit different. Everybody has a little bit different way that they do it. But even you just coming to me, offering me money before I start to hold your spot, that goes a long, long way. Like that makes me feel really comfortable doing business with you. Because ultimately, I'm trusting you to pay me. So, you know, it's pretty sweet if you can do that. If you can do it. Not everybody wants to do that, especially if you're working with a new sub and you don't know if they're super reliable, but that kind of comes back to vetting and not taking the cheapest bid, and then also communicating. Like it all kind of goes hand in hand to getting the best finish.
Absolutely.
Setting everyone up for success.
Don't put your trade partners down right from the beginning and give them a hard process to have to climb back up that ladder. Make sure that they have, just like Lydia said, she may get builders that offer her deposits ahead of time. If you have the ability to do that, do that. Set your trade partner up to succeed on your job. A big thing I think that we're thinking about when we're talking about setting everyone up for success is give your trade partners information about the homeowners. Give them information about the designer. Yeah. Because if you have a homeowner who likes to wander on the job sites and talk to the trades, whatever it may be, I have clients that do that all the time. And I always like to give my trades a little heads up. Like, hey, this is who my client is, this is who to look out for, just so that they know when that client walks on the job, if they're, you know, blasting their music, rocking out while they work through the day, if they see the homeowner walk on the job, they have the respect to turn it down, they know who they're looking for, and they can kind of make sure they greet people and just put them in a position that they're going to succeed. You don't want the homeowner to step on the job site and be like, oh, I told you I didn't want any smoking on the job site, and there was some guy out back in the driveway that was smoking, and I just don't appreciate that. Set your trade partners up with success. Teach them who your homeowners are. Teach them what your job site rules are. That was something that I implemented just over the last year, is actually job site rules. I kind of just assumed that everyone worked the same way I did. And you know, assuming things is what gets you into trouble. So I had actually just took from one of Matt's job sites, his job site rules, and made a few changes to them myself. But if it's a client that prefers that trades don't work on their home on Sundays, or they don't want smoking on the job site, or you know, just my things, I want you to clean up every day, things that we think are common sense. I just have a little job site rules sign on the door as they come in, so they know, okay, this is what we need to take care of for the day, this is how we need to act on this job site, and this is kind of who the homeowner is, so that when they do step on the job, they are not set up to fail right from the beginning.
Yeah, that's huge, 100%. Like, come in, walk the job with us, be like, hey, the homeowner likes to come in. If they try to make changes, I would really like it if you stop, and you don't do anything, you don't talk them into something, you just say, hi, we need to really communicate with the builder before we make this change. Because I think sometimes even homeowners don't know that changes cost extra. They'll just come in and they'll be like, oh, let's move this, let's do that, let's do this extra change. Like, we're waiting right now on one because they can't decide their speaker placement on the ceiling in the great room. Like, you're holding everybody up here. You're not making these decisions. And like, it's just, we all need to communicate together. And if I know more about your job, if I know more about your homeowner, if I know more about what you're expecting me to do when I show up, I can make sure I meet those goals for you. I mean, even when I'm bidding for you, it might be a great idea if you do have very specific site rules, especially for that job, that you say, hey, these are my rules. This is what I would like to have done every day. I would maybe like you to clean up the floors every day before you leave. Or I don't want you to have, a bunch of scrap rocks sitting around. Or I want all of the trash taken out of the job and put in the dumpster every day. Just little stuff like that. And then you're not walking in being frustrated, being like, man, this job site's a mess. Or they left everything gross. Or the homeowner's coming by tomorrow to take a look at the job. Like, even communicate that stuff to us. That helps a lot. If I know the homeowner's gonna stop by sometime, I'll make sure everything's tidy. We'll turn our music down. We'll make sure we're on the job when they're there. We can walk through with you. Just, tell us what's going on. Communicate. You can't communicate enough. Even if you think it's something silly or stupid that we don't care about, it'll probably help us in the long run, and it'll help us give you what you want and make you look good. Because if your homeowner comes on site and we're all like cussing and, making a mess and throwing food on the floor or whatever, it's not gonna make you look good either. So help us make you look good.
Building relationships. You guys, like I said right from the beginning, I don't trade hop a lot. I don't go out and pick different trades because their price is lower or whatever it may be. Actually, the majority of the trades that I work with have, I think the newest sub that we added to our team was 2 years old. The majority of the people that are on our team worked for my dad when he started the company 38 years ago, or the next generation of that business worked for my dad. Relationships, I think, can take you a lot further than you would ever expect them to. And building that relationship with your trade is going to help you so that they do pick you. If you're in a tight position and there's 2 builders asking for that drywall contractor, they're gonna come to the one that has paid them on time, has communicated well, has treated them with respect, and has built the relationship with them. So I had a woman actually walk up to me yesterday asking some questions about how to find a lumber contractor and how to pick which lumber contractor you're gonna work with, and about how she had had a few people that bid a job for her and there was like a $3,000 difference between them. And a lot of that pricing, even from our suppliers, comes from relationships. I know personally that if I go to SunPro to ask them for a lumber package and I don't purchase from them every day, and I go to BFS and ask them for the same lumber package, my pricing from BFS is gonna way beat the pricing from SunPro because of that relationship that we've built together. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and it takes respect and communication, but having that really good relationship is gonna help you with having people come to your job, help you with pricing, and just help you build a better team.
Yeah, like I don't want to be your BFF. Like we don't have to hang out on the weekends. Like we don't have to do things together. But just super simple gestures go a really long way. So, you know, for example, maybe every Friday you bring donuts or coffee to your trades. That's huge. That shows me that you're appreciative of what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be something humongous. I mean, maybe a gift card for a trade that's done a really good job, that's gone over and beyond what you were expecting. Maybe you have a tight deadline and they made sure they got it done for you. Show that appreciation because you know that they're trying their hardest to give you what you want, especially if they put you back on schedule. I mean, it does not hurt to show appreciation somehow. I mean, I know most tradespeople are, you know, tradespeople, but we still like nice things. We still like to be appreciated. We still maybe, you know, like a coffee if, you know, we're working a Saturday, come by, bring a coffee, maybe bring a breakfast sandwich, stop by, be like, hey guys, do you want some lunch today? It's on me. You know, a lot of times builders will do like wrap-up parties when a big house is done. That's awesome, that's super fun. It shows us that, you know, man, I really appreciate everything you guys did for me. I mean, even having like water coolers on site. On a hot day, you have, you know, a Yeti cooler full of water bottles for your subs. All of those things go all towards building relationships. And it says, I appreciate you. I know you're out here working hard for me. You're making me money. I want to help you, you know, and show you that I care about you more than just the job that you're doing for me. I care about you as a person. Referral, referral, referral.
How many contractors in this room have gotten a job from a referral from a trade? I would tell you that more than 90% of my business is referral based. And it's referrals from architects, it's referrals from designers. Those are probably the 2 big ones. But I get referrals actually from my trade partners more often than I ever expected. And I think that we could do the same for them. I have a lot of builder friends. In our market, I try and get as involved as I can in our Home Builders Association and just try and work together with the other builders that are in my industry. And it's not uncommon for a builder to come up to me and say, hey, I had a really bad time with my drywall guy the last time. I'm just struggling. Like, do you have any recommendations? Do you have anyone that you would refer to me? Don't be afraid to share your trades and share that information with other builders in your area. I think if you think of that as, oh, I'm helping the competition, you're already wrong. You should work together. It's not uncommon for me to compete against 5 or 6 other builders in my industry for the same job. But whenever that job's awarded, I'll sit and talk to the other builder all the time and be like, hey, just a heads up, here's something I found out in discovery that I don't know if you caught or not, but this could hopefully really help you down the road. and refer your trades, refer your suppliers, help each other out. Don't be afraid to work with other people in your industry and refer your trades, refer your suppliers, because there's plenty of work to go around for all of us. You don't need to think of each other as competition. And if I can refer Lydia's business to another builder in my industry and she can now make more money to take care of her team and her family, she's gonna really be thankful for that and come back and work for us over and over again.
100%. Like if you find work for me and you get me in maybe with like your builder niche, that's gonna be huge. Not only that, but I can refer good trades that I've worked with and behind to you too. So I think if there's, if we're all helping each other out, it goes a long way. Like I might have a great, painter, be like, man, this painter was fantastic. He came behind us. I've never seen such good painting. Like it all just kind of needs to open up. We're all so closed off because every trade has their little spot and they fit in it, but we can all work together. We can all refer each other. I mean, maybe I run into somebody at a place and they're like, oh, I'm looking for a remodel. If I refer you, like, I would like to be like, hey, thank you, I really appreciate that, and have it come back to me too, with you referring me to a client or me to another builder. So we can all help each other grow, help each other find more business, and it's just, referrals are a great way to go. We are all in this together.
Yeah, I think this is a really good one for our last point, is just treat each other with respect. Communicate really well with each other. We are all trying to provide one person with a beautiful finished product, and it takes both of us and all of us to make that product come to life. There's not one of us in this room that does the entire project from start to finish without the help of other people. So just make sure that you are thanking your trades, thank your other contractors, do nice things for them during the week, do nice things for them around the holidays. I actually carry around a stack of thank you cards in my backpack at all times. And even if it's just something silly that someone's done for me, it's not uncommon for me to just like write them a little note. I have a little stack of like Starbucks gift cards in my truck or whatever, and I'll just randomly leave like, hey, thanks for your help today, whatever, here's a little note. Just remember that without each other, we couldn't provide the product that we provide for the clients, and we wouldn't continue to get those referrals and get that business and be able to be successful contractors without the help of one another.
Exactly, and I want to do a good job for you. I want to show up and I just want to blow your socks off. Like I want to do the best job that I can. And we all work in this together to give you the best job as a builder. So that's why it's really important to pick quality subs. It's important to show appreciation. It's important to communicate deadlines to me, because we're not walking in there being like, man, I want to screw this builder over. I want to do the worst job that I can and I want to get a really bad reputation for this. Like, no. We want to show up. We're professionals. We want to do a great job for you. We want to give you the best thing that we can. Just help us. Communication, like appreciation, all of it. Help us help you to get what you want.
We only have a few minutes left, but Chelsea's got the mic, and I just want to give you guys the opportunity. You are all great home builders and tradespeople. If there is something we've talked about today that you have a little tip for the group or something you've experienced, I'd love for you to stand up and share your information with the rest of the group to help all of us build better.
Well, I have a question. I got burnt a couple times on the deposits. So, like for new contractors, or new subcontractors, do you all get deposits still?
Get deposits from new subcontractors?
Get deposits to new subcontractors.
I do a lot of vetting. If I'm gonna bring a new subcontractor, a new supplier, a new trade onto the team, I'm gonna ask Allie and Zach and all the other builders that I work with, like, hey, I know you've worked with this guy before. What are your thoughts? How was your experience? I would never probably give a new subcontractor a deposit without talking to someone they've worked with before.
And I would ask for referrals. If I don't have referrals for you, then that doesn't mean that, maybe somebody's just starting out, but even then, if you're starting out, even in the trades, you've probably worked for someone to learn how to do the trade. So they should have some kind of referral network or something being, maybe another builder they've done work for, subcontractor, homeowner, some way to kind of vet that they're actually legitimate and they're not just coming and trying to take a deposit from you.
But just one thing too, you're a trade? Or are you a builder?
Yeah, I'm a builder.
Okay. I think as the trade contractors in the room, you guys should interview your builders you're working for too.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
You know, there are a lot of home builders that if we go back and we're looking at 2007, 2008, there are a lot of home builders that when the recession hit, they just filed bankruptcy and skipped out of town. And then 6 or 7 years later, when the market got good again, they came back, started the company under a new name, and are just rolling like nobody knew who they were. I think that we should all be interviewing each other and checking each other's references, because we want to work with respectable people both ways. We want to know we're paying you to do a job that you're not going to take off halfway through. We want to know that, you know, a trade wants to know that a builder has got the money they need to pay their bills. So I would encourage you to interview each other both ways.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, I wanted to bring up a good point too. Sometimes your supply house might know about your trade contractors.
Yeah.
Especially if they frequent that area. You know, like a local, for us, it would be probably like our local hardware store, Sherwin-Williams, something like that. If your contractor's consistently going in there, they might also have a good idea too of like, yeah, you know, I've heard this from so-and-so. I mean, there's a lot of talk going along around with like the subs, but also might be a good idea just to kind of like stop in and be like, hey, have you guys heard about this business or this company? They might have a little information for you too.
Yeah.
You said you pay subs like pretty quickly. How are you doing that? Because like, you know, I have my bookkeeper run everything once a month, do the draws, all that. Like, are you doing something that's simple? Like, because I feel like I would not have the time to be dealing with trying to pay subs all the time throughout the month.
Yeah, I'll tell you the best thing I did for the business in 18 months ago was hire an office manager. That was the best money I've ever spent. And she now handles QuickBooks instead of me doing it at midnight, half awake, trying to get it done like on all the free time that I possibly had. Yeah. That was the best money I've ever invested back into the company. And I do have her every Friday, she'll print me just a list of like all the invoices that we have in QuickBooks. And I'll just go through and be like, pay this one, this one, this one. And just kind of give her the list back. She takes care of all of it for me and just prints the checks that we can sign. And we do that because we've reinvested a lot of the money back into the business to have a really good working capital to be able to pay out of our own pocket. So it's not uncommon for us to come out of pocket, you know, $1 million a month across 5 jobs and then get paid back on bank draws. But that wouldn't be possible without reinvesting back into our business. Yeah. But I would encourage you to hire like an office manager or an accountant.
Well, I mean, that was the best hire I ever did, was a bookkeeper, but yeah. I can't get him to pay like 5-10 times a month or something like that. I guess, can I ask a question for everyone? Does anyone use Adaptive? Because we're looking at that system that's automated. You do?
Build does? Rising or Build?
Actually, we really like it so far. We were previously kind of doing it in really an old school way of like everyone's giving hard copies or putting copies in Dropbox. And this software allows you to, either people can email it directly to the software, or we can forward an invoice to the software or take a picture of a receipt. And then all of our PMs are responsible for coding their receipts and their invoices on Wednesdays. And then by the time Friday rolls around, they're in there. And our bookkeeper is also constantly, hey, you haven't coded your receipts, but it's helped a lot.
Well, I can say that because you can pay automatically ACH with Adaptive, because that's our thing, is like we're issuing like a bill paycheck or a check, and it might take a week. Sometimes it gets lost in the mail and 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
ACH is really nice if you are paying your subs. I prefer people pay that way. That way I'm not waiting.
What have you seen subs pay you? Because there's not a lot of, like...
I've been using Trust lately, so I send an invoice through there, and then they can pay directly to Trust, and then it goes into my Trust account, and then I can use debit cards off of that, and then I can assign them to people. I can turn them off, turn them on, and then I can actually pull the money straight out of there and deposit it into my business account if I choose.
Yeah.
So that works out really well. So I did one the other day, and I think she paid a day later, went straight into the Trust account. So that was super convenient.
Okay.
So Adaptive and Trust.
Yeah, Trust.
Okay.
Cool. Great question.
What have you guys seen as far as trade partners who do a great job of the work but don't do a great job on the back end? So they're giving you, the paper copy or holding their hand out for the check. How have you helped them improve their system so that you can pay them ACH, or you can, get an emailed invoice instead of a handwritten one, or something like that.
Yeah, I have my
Yellow carbon copy.
Yeah,
The one that you write
my
down.
stonemason hands me an invoice that's like on a carbon copy paper, and he's the one that stands there with his hand out waiting for his check. I think that we can give them as much advice as possible, but there are just some people that's the way they've worked for 38 years. They have no desire to change at this point, and sometimes we just got to deal with it. But there are people like that I just don't, you can give them all the business advice in the world, but if they run their business that way, you just try and adapt. If they're a good trade partner, if they're a good contractor, make it work. If not, maybe find someone else.
Yeah, or maybe even if you're looking into doing ACH payments, maybe make a suggestion of a software that you would like them to use that makes the payments easy. And then even offer maybe to be like, hey, I have no problem paying for your subscription for a year, especially if it's making it super simple for you. And then they'll probably be more apt to use it because they're not paying out of pocket. It's a good point. To use the software. So that might be a great way to go. Like, hi guys, I would really like all of my subcontractors to move to this system. It makes it easier for me. I've prepaid for a year. I've set up training for you, and just try to find the simplest, easiest way to, especially some of the older guys, like my dad is 70 now, and he types on the keyboard with like single digits, and he would still send you a printed invoice. So trying to get those guys like more modern, or maybe even find somebody younger in the company that you can kind of come to if it's set up that way, where you're like, hey, could you talk to Bob about maybe moving to a more digital system, because I can pay you faster, I can track things better, and it just works better for me as a flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, adding on to that, so I have like pretty much all Polish and Latino subs, and they don't even want to use Dropbox, So what we did actually, and my mom is my bookkeeper, and we signed up for deluxe e-checks.
Oh.
And so we email them, those guys, their checks as a PDF. And so it was like the transition from the handwritten check, because the handwritten check, that's a real pain in the ass, because it's like you got to be there, and like who's there, and who do we make it out to? So anyway, and the other thing is workers' comp, right? Like we want to be writing the check to whoever is on the insurance certificate. It's also an issue we've run into. Yeah. So if you go to like Deluxe and they have e-checks, and you pay for the checks, but then it takes them a little getting used to. You have to say like, it's a real check, you just print it out and you deposit it at your bank like a normal check. And we found that was a really good transition to ACH. So we do the e-check, and then they love it because they feel like they're getting paid immediately. They don't have to go to our job site. And then eventually it's like water on the rock. It's like subtle abuse. And then we just get them into ACH eventually. So
Allie's really good at being like subtle nudging of her people. Anyone else? Someone up here?
Can I say the only drawback to e-checks is I'll write checks to subs and they don't cash it for weeks.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do
It never
about.
clears my account, and then, obviously my bookkeeper, I can check with him, like, what's not cleared, but.
You have to call them and say, cash that check that I sent you.
Yeah, that's what I like.
That's probably sitting on
Kind
the
of a-
counter.
She's trying to convert them to ACH, so I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We use Deluxe, and I get it,
Great point.
but people just don't cash them sometimes.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but
So we bid on fixed bids. So we really require like strict numbers up front with our trades. But we've recently run into the issue where we're depending on them coming in at those numbers, and then their final invoice is $8,000 to $12,000 over.
Yeah.
So how do you communicate and deal with that issue?
So I kind of work similarly. The one thing that I think when I've seen bills come back to me more than the bid was prior, it's usually because someone's asked them to do some type of a change throughout the process. I've really tried to put a complete stop to my clients making changes with trade partners entirely, to the point where I've created a change order sheet that tells them when they sign my contract, like, I'm not gonna charge you to make changes, but if you make a change with a subcontractor on the job site, you're paying 100% profit and overhead. I don't care. And I think that scares people enough to maybe quit doing it. Some of them still do, but Usually when the bill has come in higher than the bid was, it's because the homeowner told me to add this or told me to do that.
A couple of them have just been like no changes, no hiccups, nothing.
How
like-
far ahead of time are you getting your bids from your subcontractors? Like, are these projects like 2 years out and then you're finally doing them, or are these like?
We're working about 3 to 6 months out right now.
Really? Okay.
And so right now we're like giving blueprints, we're walking through job sites, like we're trying to communicate every detail as much as possible. And so that's kind of something that I'm like trying to figure out now. Okay, you want me to pay $10,000 more? Nothing was ever communicated. Like you gave me one price, everything's gone as scheduled.
Yeah.
So now how do I address it?
I think it was Allie that I learned this from. I think Allie did subcontractor agreements with all her subs, and I never used to do that. That is something new that we've added in, and that's one of the pieces of it that's part of it, is like, you know, set that expectation up front. And that's kind of where I identify like all of my job site rules too. Like just anything I want my trade partner to know, how quickly I want them to send me invoices, what my rules are, how I expect them to honor their bids, or you know, how that whole thing will work. I think if you sit down, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ellie, I think she sits down once a year with her subcontractors and just goes through like this agreement, and if there's any changes from the year prior or whatever, that would be a good place for you to put that information in, and then it at least gives you a starting point to have that conversation with them. And maybe in that type of a situation, they'd tell you, well, hey, here's the reason that we've been doing it that way, and maybe that'll give you a little more insight into why it's been happening.
Okay. I would maybe just touch base with them too before they start. You know, maybe like a month or two before, like, hi, just a reminder, this is what you bid it at, this is what the scope of work is that you bid.
Are we still
This
good?
is what I'm expecting you to complete for this price. And make sure that they're, you know, maybe reminded of what they told you, what they bid for, and then they're like, oh yeah, or send them back the bid. Be like, hi, we're ready to get started on this. Here's your bid that you originally gave me. I'm expecting you to come in at this price. And kind of just throw it back at them and be like, I'm not expecting the 10, like, there's change orders, and we've had change orders, but that's separate, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allie's a real tough cookie. Talk to her, she'll give you all the she's good at contract stuff, but that's kind of where, that's kind of where I learned a lot of my contract stuff, so Allie's a good one to ask questions. Anyone else?
Anybody have a really good piece of advice that's helped you keep and work with good subs? Like something that you found just kind of clicks, works for you?
One of the things that I went to a conference last year, and it was a little bit of an ego check for us as builders, but builders don't build homes. It's the trades that do.
Yep.
And we self-perform a ton of work ourselves, but the majority of guys that work for us and build these homes are the trades. So it's a pretty cool, it's like a bit of an ego check because we're builders and we build cool stuff.
For the GCs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We drive the schedule and we try and keep the plans what they're supposed to be, but the trades are super valuable, and I think we all forget that sometimes.
That's where all the money's at too. I do a lot of high school kid education and speak to a lot of high school students about construction and jobs and careers, and I always tell them, like, if you want to make the big money, be a trade contractor. Because general contractors, it's a fun job and it seems a lot more glorious, but the trades are where it's at. All my trades are doing just fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to add about the communication, which is so important. I'm managing a job right now, and our framer is a little ways out still from, coming on the job site. I've been explaining and sending him photos through text about what the excavators are doing, and what is our timing, and what else have we purchased for the project. So I think that communication is super important.
Yeah.
100%. Well, we know you're not just like leading us on either, which really helps. If I don't hear from you for 3 months when I'm supposed to start, I'm automatically assuming we're not doing that, and I'm moving on.
One of the cool things a friend of ours does is she does like almost like a pre-con meeting before with all her trades. So she has like all her trades that come to her office, and she just kind of runs them through the job site. They sit there at a big conference room table and flip through the plans and just communicate with one another, because even just having like the drywall contractor know the painter and like the two of them being able to work together has been really helpful. So I loved learning that from Meg. It's Meg & Co. on Instagram. She does this really cool pre-construction meeting, and I thought that was neat. That's something that we've tried to start implementing a little more, because I think that sets your whole team up for success, and everyone meets each other and everyone's on the same page.
I think it's important to remember too, all your trades don't hate each other. What happens is we get mad at each other because of decisions you guys are making that pit us at each other for the majority of the time. Like, why did they do that? I don't know why they do that. Like, you shouldn't have, like, so I think pre-con meetings, I mean, that would be amazing if somebody was like, hey, let's all just hang out, let's talk through the job together.
Grab lunch.
And figure it out. Yeah, pay for lunch for everybody, walk through the plans together. Find those trouble spots before you even start, and then it will go a lot smoother.
Yeah, and I would add to that, we also do that with the homeowners. So the homeowners get to see their faces too. So then there's accountability that when the trades are on, they've already seen who the homeowners are, and they feel like it's a real community and they're building something together.
That's awesome. That's really good.
Yeah, I have a question generally for the room. First of all, I didn't realize there was a child right there, and I shouted an obscenity from the back of the room. I'm really sorry. This is why I'm always one beer short of a six-pack. And I was actually just wondering, there was a mention before of Lydia, you were saying yeah, look, we can walk off your job, if we don't like what's going on. I've definitely had where I've vetted. It's always roofers. Where I just kind of hope this guy gets a calf cramp in the porta potty on a Wednesday, and the question is my issue, I'm always afraid of lien rights, right? So it's I would really, sometimes I would like to terminate somebody mid-project, but I'm always afraid of that lien right. Even if they don't actually have them, them just filing a lien on my client would be so embarrassing. In the room, is this something you guys are afraid of? If you have a trade that just isn't performing, and you have to let them go mid-project, do you just pay them out? Do you take the risk? Should I not be worried about lien rights? Anyone have any thoughts?
There's one up here. And if you guys have to go to get to your next class, feel free to walk out. We're gonna wrap it up, but don't feel like you can't get up.
So I just had that happen with a welder, and I couldn't get him to finish the stairs. He tacked the railing on. He's like, I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
It was months and months and months and months and months. And I got another welder, and I said, can you fix this and finish it, because I'm not going to be able to get CO on this project. And he came and did it, and then I just called him, and I said, listen, I haven't heard back. I've been trying to get a hold of you and texting and calling and emailing, and I paid this other person this much, so I'm going to pay you your original quote minus what I paid them. And they're like, okay. They're happy because the job was done.
Yeah.
The other thing to avoid in the lien, I use a stamp. So I do a lot of handwritten checks, and I put a stamp on the endorsement.
My endorsement's the same way.
Yeah.
It's a waiver of.
So it just basically is a lien waiver, because I don't want to do individual lien waivers on every single sub. So it's just a stamp on the back, and I don't know how that would hold up, but I think it would. So.
Yeah, I had an attorney that actually wrote that for me. So above the endorsement on the back of the check basically says they've waived their rights for any liens on the property. And maybe that's I guarantee you, most of the people have never read it, but it's there, and they signed it because they wanted their money.
Yeah.
And I've never had anyone come back to me and say hey, I'm not signing this because I want lien rights, but I don't know.
Anything over 5,000, I think.
Yeah. That's an awesome question. Well, thank you guys. We won't keep you, but thank you so much for coming to the class, and I hope you guys have a great build show.
Thank you guys.